called the Fox Place, and I saw them, and I was like, I got to go get some funky glasses. If I'm going to wear glasses, they might as well be really funky.
They are nice. They go with your shirt. Yeah, it brings character to this conversation. So welcome everyone. Welcome to this characterful, pleasureful conversation we're going to be having with you about this part of the conversation, and there's mostly a reading of a very, very profound text that Blue Heron Woman here with you prepares every week, and that we share with you live as maybe a podcast if you want to see this like that. Maybe it's not really, you don't have to stick around to watch the images. If you want, you can hear the audio, because we're going to be a long time here explaining and sharing this text. And the title specifically, you asked me to change it, so I did not get to that last change. So what would be the final name for this week's conversation?
How we lost our freedoms and became criminals.
Okay, yeah. So that's might seem harsh, but it's important to. I get that a lot. I all the time
the truth.
Ask myself, why do we continue to just go along with the criminal system when it's ever more in our face that it's criminal?
They're looking they're looking to make us criminals in any way. They've already decided we're criminals. They're just looking for the reason to charge us.
Yes, and and everything is created in the way that, I mean, it's like it's a field full of traps, so that we can easily step on. And that's one of the things I keep in my mind a lot when, at the same time, when so I can not judge and forgive others. But then the silver lining there is you got to forgive others, but you have to kind of stand ground and say, forgiveness doesn't mean keep doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
That's it. So we have to stop doing it. And that's what we're here for. We're here to share all that information that's going to help you know where the traps are. So stick along with us on this conversation. So that's the criminals. Are we the criminals? They make us criminals?
Well, they've already decided we're criminals, so they just are waiting, right? But we'll address that at the end. So, for the vast majority of human history, thousands of years of empires, conquests, trades, nobody needed a birth certificate. And I know we've already addressed this, but we're hammering on this one hard because we got to understand this. So we also have to understand the switch, because this starts the criminalization of everybody.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Then within the span of 20 years, nearly every industrialized country decided that they did need birth certificates, and all of them did so simultaneously. It wasn't just it was a compressed historical window. So ancient Rome cataloged the household, not the individual body, and not the moment of emergence into the world, as a time-stamped, numbered event. Let's get that straight. Our emergence into the world is a time-stamped, numbered event.
In the database.
In the database.
Yeah.
Right. Medieval Europe relied on parish records. Clergies, the priests were tracking baptisms, marriages, and deaths. And these were ecclesiastical records. And the state didn't require you, because there was no state, but you weren't required to produce those records from the clergy in order to function in society. Why did the state suddenly need to know birth information? We've been told it's about public health, to track infant mortality and to help understand disease patterns to improve maternal life. But that doesn't explain the scope of the infrastructure that followed. In the US, the push for birth certificates began around 1902. By 1933, every single state demonstrated a 90% registration rate. That's a lot of concerted effort. Mm-hmm. That's 31 years only for an entire country to restructure how it accounted for every human being born in its borders. And where is the discussion? Where is the record of discussion or debate with the people? There is none because there wasn't any.
Where's the democracy there?
Yeah.
Who voted for that?
Yeah, really, since our government is supposedly for the people and by the people. So what else happened in those years? Something we've already talked about. The Federal Reserve Bank, the federal income tax, Social Security, the draft registration of World War II, World War I and World War II. And so quietly, the birth certificate became the master key to all of this. Britain's General Register Office was established in 1837, and France, Germany, Australia, Canada all moved to the same system in this compressed window of time.
Okay, and man, isn't that something I wanted to ask or should have asked a long time ago? So now I get to hear it.
We don't know I haven't done research about Mexico and South America and other countries.
No, but it's like you say, they're all within the time, same time window, same copy paste, the law system. We think they're at different countries, but they're all in the same kind of database. So this is where you start to question the New World Order and really realize that we've been in the New World Order for a very long time. Exactly, yeah.
So what this structurally enabled was taxation in the precise sense of assigning each individual person a taxpayer identification number. It also enabled conscription, drafting you into their wars. Remember, how many of us humans alive would have ever gone into the wars we fought? Not a single one of us. So every single system is built on the birth certificate as the initiating document. It's not the record of a life. It's the opening entry in a ledger of control. Being a human being is a biological fact, and that's not a legal determination. A person, again, we're going to this. A person in the legal sense is an entity recognized by the state as having rights, responsibilities, and obligations. We're going to come back to this word obligation in a little bit. So as we've already discussed under the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, corporations are legal persons, as are municipalities and cities, as are governments. So the word person draws from the Latin word persona, meaning the mask, the role to be played. So the birth certificate constitutes your legal person in a functioning sense. And this is the version all other legal persons are authorized to interact with. So what responsibilities and obligations were placed on our legal persons at our birth? That's the issue. That's the start of the criminality right there, because the two women who found this out, where their legal person was running an illegal scam. Mm-hmm. Right? So, we kind of know the rights thanks to the Constitution, but the responsibilities and obligations, have we ever wondered how jobs are created? Maybe by the responsibilities and obligations they placed on this legal persona at birth. Oh, and are the guidance counselors at schools tied to this? Probably are. So when governments issue bonds, they are borrowing against future productivity, tax revenue, and economic output, and they need collateral or these bonds that will generate value over time. This means they borrow massively, backed by the projected economic productivity of you and I.
Mhm.
Government surety bonds are 3-party agreements. The first one happened in 2750 BC. A British farmer was going into the king's army, so he was the obligee or
Mhm.
beneficiary of the bond. A second farmer promised to cultivate the first guy's farm and give half of the products to the profit to the soldier and the merchant. So the soldier would get half and the merchant would get, or the soldier would get a quarter and the merchant would get a quarter and the second guy would get half, right? For working the farm.
Mhm.
Why a merchant? Well, the merchant guaranteed the performance of the second guy. So the merchant provided the surety, and the second guy is known as the principal. So for a surety bond, there must be an obligation between the principal and the obligee, or obligee, however you say that. That's what license bonding and insurance says.
Yeah.
Means you have no faith in yourself to fulfill your. Anyway, the parish records, the clan structures, household censuses were all community level forms of recognition. Your presence was acknowledged through a relationship, not a registration. What the birth certificate did was substitute a business relationship with the state for a communal relationship with people. And the shift happened so quickly and smoothly. Why in the span of 30 to 50 years at the most did every industrialized nation build the same type of system? Do we really consider this freedom? This document, the birth certificate, was not created for us. It was created about us. In 1817, Thomas Jefferson requested a copy of a book, a rule book. That was the pricing guide used by the carpenters of Philadelphia. He was refused. The Carpenters Company of Philadelphia, which was founded in 1724, told him that it was for members only. This rule book contained formulas that they used to price every stage of construction. So this is about an economic system that existed before 1963, a system that didn't require banks. The craftsmen of the Carpenters Company could make an oak chair that 2 centuries later still sits level and isn't falling apart. And they weren't paid hourly wages, or they weren't taking out loans to buy the materials. They were part of a guild system. And you're going to say, now we're going into the Freemasons. No, we're not. I know that's the origin of the Freemasons now. And these guys might have been, but we can talk about a guild system without the Masons.
Okay.
So the craftsmen of the Carpenters Company of Philadelphia were master builders. And now we have no master builders. We split them into architects, engineers, and contractors. Neither one of the other knowing each other's trade, right? Mm-hmm. And then the contractors get reduced further, split further into the framers, the roofers, and more. I couldn't begin to tell you it, right? So when Philadelphia needed Independence Hall, the craftsmen built it. When the writers of the Constitution needed a structure for their constitutional Congress, the craftsmen offered Carpenter's Hall. And these buildings still serve as functional structures, not as historical curiosities propped up by constant renovation. The rate book they wouldn't share, or the rule book they wouldn't share with Thomas Jefferson, was a pricing system. And it was not what the market could bear or what a client could be talked into paying. It was a fair price determined by experienced members called measurers who worked in teams of at least 2, ensuring that no individual could inflate costs for personal gain. The system was designed to be fair for the craftsmen and the clients alike. And then there were lines of credit that were held between community members, so work might be exchanged for food or services or other things. And the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported in 1828 that colonial America was this way: face-to-face arrangements that help bond the community together. There were thousands of different currencies at the time: barter economics, guild monopolies, and more. The Library of Congress documents upwards of 10,000 unique legal banknotes or money in circulation. The government called this chaos. The buildings made under this old system still stand. The furniture still holds together. The communities bound by relational face-to-face agreements we have not been able to replicate since, or arrangements. So, February 25, 1863, Abraham Lincoln signed the National Currency Act into law. The act created the officer of the controller of the currency and established the first national banking system. We were told it was about stability, to make a uniform currency to replace the chaos of 10,000 different unique and right and legal. However, the official purpose, stated plainly in the legislation and confirmed by the Federal Reserve's archives, was to help finance the Civil War by increasing demand for government debt. Again, a war, right? Did any of those citizens want a war? Probably not.
No.
So national banks were required to buy treasury securities equal to 1/3 of their capital, and they would receive banknotes in return that were worth 90% of that bond's value. And the first, that seems like a loss to me. That just doesn't make sense. But the first surety bond firm then started in New York in 1884 with the very first surety bond in 1887. The Homestead Act was signed into law on May 20, 1862, 9 months before the Banking Act. It offered 160 acres of public land to any adult citizen for a small filing fee. Free land. Oh, but we forgot about the Indians living on it, the Native Americans. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole tonight. Free land, except the money to buy tools, seed, livestock, building materials was extra. And so few laborers and farmers could afford to do that. So most of the land went to speculators, or what we know now as developers, cattlemen, miners, lumbermen, and railroads. The Homestead Act gave free land to people that could afford to develop it. The National Banking Act, 9 months later, created the banking system that would lend those who couldn't afford it the money to afford it. What rose then in place of the guild system and others was company towns. The first one in Massachusetts was in Massachusetts and was founded in 1822. By the 1880s, approximately 200 company towns existed across America. So that company, corporation, corporate towns. Workers were paid in company or corporate script that could only be spent at the company or corporate stores. Without external competition or the measurers of the guilds, housing costs and living costs became exorbitant, and workers had to build up large debts just to live. 75% of all script used in America at that time was issued by the coal corporations in Kentucky, Virginia, and West Virginia. And workers couldn't leave the corporate towns because they owed more than they earned. Is there anything new about that? The Pullman strike of 1894 involved 150,000 workers across 27 states, and this is where the term redneck came from, because the miners, they wore a red handkerchief around their neck so they could be distinguished in the woods from that, right? So the company town model replaced the guild networks that self-regulated fair pricing, as well as the barter system that bound communities through mutual obligation and the extended credit between relationships, all replaced by script you could only use at company or corporate stores. Who still operates the old way? Well, the Amish, who use a contribution-based economy, and they've fought for their very limited freedom, but they still give in, and we're going to talk about that at the end. So in 1870, a brick wall appeared. The 1870 census was the first to name all Americans, including formerly enslaved people. Before that, tracing families was nearly impossible because there was no official, mom would keep a record in the Bible. So nobody really knows, right? So then the 1890 census that could maybe have filled in gaps was destroyed by a fire in 1891. And in 1921, a larger fire destroyed most of the rest of what remained of the 1890 census. And then in 1933, Congress authorized the completion of the destruction of the 1890 census one day before the president laid the cornerstone for the fireproof National Archives building.
Okay.
They did not want that 1890 census found.
Okay.
So the same decade that transformed the American economy also transformed the American identity. Before 1870, you were part of a community, a guild, a local system of mutual obligation, meeting need and receiving benefits. After 1870, you were now an individual documented in a federal census, working for wages and borrowing from banks. The Carpenter's Rule Book was secret because it contained proof that fairness could be systematized, that communities could regulate themselves and didn't need a bank for every transaction. The Homestead Act offered free land that required money to develop. The National Banking Act created the lenders, and the company towns created borrowers who could never leave. And the census created the documentation. Does this sound like freedom?
Nope.
Why do structures built with bank financing require constant renovation?
To keep the banks alive.
Maybe because people don't really know what they're doing or don't want to be doing what they're doing too, They're not master craftsmen. Right. So before 1916, a person could wake up and decide that he or she wanted a second barn and start building it, or they wanted to put a porch on their house or another room or something. There were no applications, no fees, no inspections, and no permit number stamped on a form necessary for this. Almost overnight, that changed again. Who decided that building on your own property required anyone else's permission? And why did every major urban center have the same answer in 10 years? New York City was the site of the first major zoning resolution in 1916. The official explanation was that skyscrapers were casting a shadow over the garment district workers, factory fumes were drifting into residential neighborhoods, etc. So again, chaos. And they said they needed to impose the order. But why did it need to include private residential construction? Why did a homeowner on a half-an-acre lot in New York City proper need to ask permission before adding a bedroom or a porch or a bathroom or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. By 1926, the Standard Zoning and Enabling Act that could be adopted by states was made law, and 43 states took it on within a decade. Why? Because permission could be denied. Some courts, there were some dissenters, and the courts ruled that zoning was a valid exercise of police power. Shall I say that again? The courts ruled that zoning is a valid exercise of police power. Has America ever not been under police rule then? No. Mm-hmm. Local governments were then granted broad discretion Before zoning, before permits, before property taxation that emerged to enforce compliance, the reality was that you owned land, you could decide what you would grow on it and what you built on it. There were common laws, like if you created a fire hazard for your neighbors or a contamination industry or physical obstruction of shared resources. There were courts that existed for that if you couldn't settle it between the two of you. The baseline outside of this, however, was still autonomy. Zoning did not arrive alone. It arrived as part of a system. Number one, zoning laws that restrict what can be built and where and the dimensions of what can be built. 2, building permit requirements. 3, fees that compound. 4, property tax shifting from a flat amount to value assessed models that tie an annual tax burden to what you've built and improved. 5, building codes that specified how construction must occur. And 6, inspections at every phase, ensuring that even if you got permission, building is now subject to government oversight and they can shut you down if they want to and make you a criminal. First Criminality Act. We didn't put that in here. This all became embedded into law within a 15 to 20 year window. And again, there was no public discussion, no dissent. And we really think we're a government ruled by the that's been by the people for the people. So is the framing of these laws from the beginning designed to normalize dependency on something outside of ourselves? It was framed to the populace as we are organizing community development. But what did pre-regulatory world produce? The American frontier, the self-built towns of the Midwest, the farmsteads of Appalachia, the craftsman homes of the Pacific Northwest, and much was built without architects and definitely without permits and inspections. And much of what was produced pre-regulation still stands, not because municipal inspectors signed off on it, but because the person building it had a direct personal stake in its structural integrity. That's why bank finance building needs constant renovation, because they don't have a personal stake in its structural integrity. Mm-hmm. They have insurance that'll pay for it. Mm-hmm. Their license bonded insurance. Okay. So the wisdom transmitted was autonomous and self-regulation. So government regulation is a credentialing apparatus with licensed contractors, certified inspectors, approved materialists that interpose between a human and their freedom. Who paid for the licensing offices, the inspectors, the code enforcement departments? We, the property owners, through fees, taxes, and compliance costs. So we pay for the system that restricts us. And we gladly do it, thinking so the fee, who did it serve? Well, before comprehensive zoning and assessed property value, owning land was a terminal transaction. You bought it, you own it, you have no ongoing obligation to the state. There might have been a modest flat tax unrelated to what you built or improved on the property. So the shift to assessed property value with taxation changed the relationship again between the property owner and the state. Improvement is now a liability. Each thing triggers a reassessment. So the land is not yours in a fiscal sense. So as we're hearing this, can we bring Klaus Schwab's statement into you will own nothing and be happy? Mm-hmm. So since 1863, we've owned nothing.
Okay, it's already here. Okay.
Yeah, it's already been here for. So what was constructed was not a planning system, but a structure of dependency in which the no longer autonomous individual, now the criminal individual, required government permission to exercise their most basic rights. It required lived experience to be replaced by institutionalized memory. We've been taught That taxation is the price of civilization. It gives us roads, our courts, our armies, the social contract, and we all have to pay our share.
Mm-hmm.
The 16th Amendment was ratified in February of 1913, an amendment requiring people to surrender a portion of their labor to the government. Before that, it had never been required. Till then, government had operated on tariffs, import duties, and excise taxes on specific goods. These were taxations on the commerce, not on the labor of individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Tariffs touch you when you choose to buy something from abroad, and excise taxes were on tobacco and alcohol, right? Firearms touches you when you buy the thing that has the excise tax on it, and income tax now touches you as just for holding a job and being a productive person.
Okay.
There was a brief income tax during the Civil War that was repealed in 1872, and the Supreme Court struck down another attempt at an income tax in 1895, ruling it unconstitutional. But who benefits when the government gains a permanent, elastic, expandable claim on individual income? The most vocal advocates for the income tax amendment were not the poor, for whom the tax was supposedly designed as a tool of redistribution. No, they were the architects of the financial institutions. They understood that a government empowered to tax incomes is also empowered to borrow against future tax revenues to expand its financial obligations. In 1912, there is no federal income tax enforcement apparatus. By 1919, just 7 years later, we're saying 6 because it started in the amendment, but by 6 or 7 years later, the Bureau of Internal Revenue employs thousands. 7 years. It had regional offices in cities across the country. It has an intelligence division, a special agents unit, and prosecutorial authority. Physical buildings were built or commandeered to operate in coordinated networks from Boston to San Francisco. How does that happen in 6 years? The official reason was wartime expansion, the natural machinery of a modernizing state. But the enforcement machine wasn't built to serve the tax. The tax was the justification for building the enforcement machine. Tax was the purpose, the reason for building a police state. Building permits, all that. Reason for its zoning regulations, reason for building a police state.
Mm-hmm.
When it started, the top marginal tax rate was 7% on incomes over $500,000 a year. So the vast majority of Americans paid nothing. That's how they bring this into being, right? So the tax as it was presented was just symbolic, a gesture, not a restructuring of the relationship in the corporate state. And as we look at it, this same architecture appears again and again and again. A new freedom reducing power is introduced at its modest, least threatening scale, and then it expands into full criminalization. By 1944, the tax marginal rate was 94%. They were pulling 94% of your income. The pre-1913 world has been presented to us in school as a primitive, underfunded, unstable world, and that income tax is the medicine for a sick patient rather than the transformation of a healthy person into a sick patient. Before 1913, there was no federal crime called tax evasion at the personal level because there was nothing to evade. After 1913, a new class of criminal was created, not someone who had harmed another person, just someone who failed to surrender a portion of their labor or their money to the centralized authority. Criminality defines the boundaries of a society, and what a civilization chooses to prosecute tells you everything about what they are actually protecting. The criminalization is what crept in. The Revenue Acts of the 1910s and 1920s quietly expanded penalties, and the tax code grew. Withholding automatic deduction from wages before the worker touches the money happened in 1943. Once the money was removed before you receive it, you stop thinking of it, the money, as yours being taken, and you start thinking of your net pay as your pay. I agree. I mean, I never, right? It was always my pay is what my take-home pay. The gross pay then becomes abstract, just purely theoretical. The income tax is not an American invention. The British introduced it first in 1799 for the Napoleonic Wars, and then it was reintroduced in 1842 to be permanent. Germany did so in the 1870s to 1880s, followed by France, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, all within a similar historical window. What explains that uniformity other than the New World Order, globalization?
Yeah.
The concept of what you produce belonging to you, let's explore that. After 1913, it was programmed into us that our income first belongs to the state, which permits us to keep a portion. The pre-1913 world didn't have perfect freedom. They had slavery. However, they had a recognition that an individual's productive output had to protect its status without being a criminal. So we didn't just lose freedom, we became criminals. And how do we support that? Well, this is what I've been wanting to address. There's a verse in the Bible that says, render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's. Caesar was a Roman emperor, right? At the time of Jesus. So this is what I was taught as a good Christian and good Seventh-day Adventist. This is what all good Christians believe. Even the Amish, we must render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's. So right here and right now, I'm saying what I am rendering unto Caesar, this patrix, it's not a matrix because it's not nurturing in any way, shape, or form. This patrix is the fact that it's a corporate state, it's a police state, and the state troopers are employees of the state. Therefore, I do not fall under their jurisdiction because I'm not employed by the state of Oklahoma. I'm using that since I live here. The sheriff is for the county. I'm not under their control or their rule, as I am not an employee of the corporation of the county. The city police, same thing. This is what I'm rendering unto Caesar. I understand your network. And I'm not part of it because I'm not employed by any of your corporations. Now, the people that are teaching this sovereignty, they want to go out there and stick in the police faces that they're not. So they tell you to have this full binder, and some of them might sit in jail and they're proud of it. The Bible also has a verse that says, thou shalt have no other gods before me. So now that I've rendered unto Caesar, that I understand his corporate scheme, and I'm not part of it, now I refuse to place the police as a god between me or any other. I've finally come to this understanding. Thou shalt have no other. We've made the police gods. Like we can't solve anything without calling the police. Mm-hmm. We've made, oh my God, I'm going to offend. So this is actually kind of activating anxiety in me because whenever I see a police, because I'm now saying to myself internally, you have no authority over me. I am a divine human being, and all that Caesar shit, I helped create, but I no longer want to help create it, and I'm stepping away, and I know that per your legal system, you have no authority over me, but I'm not going to win by sticking that in their face. I'm going to just silently stop making them gods in my life. Mm-hmm. Same with the IRS and taxation and everything. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what we have to come to is understanding that that's the system and saying, no, just because you were I'm not going to shove it in your face, but as long as my spiritual reality, my causal reality is that you have no authority over me, you're not going to have authority over me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's something that's where the warrior comes in, and I think, to a great extent.
It takes a warrior to be able to. It takes the courage of a warrior to be able to say that. Yeah.
Right, and we got to understand. There's, anything else is, you're not standing up. First, you got to recognize there's an enslaver that is effectively enslaving you through all of this that you've described, right? Then you got to be willing to stand up to him. Those are two very basic, congruent things for being sovereign as a human being.
But it's not a standing up in the like what I'm saying. The sovereign, these people that are saying, "Well, I'm not going to use a license plate. And I'm going to have my binder to show you how you police, how you have no authority over me. I'm just going to work in the causal realm and say, no, I'm no longer giving that other aspect of my consciousness authority over me. I'm not making him an idol that I worship. I'm not making him or her a god. I'm now taking back my personal sovereignty and knowing that you have no authority over me."
Mm-hmm.
I'm decriminalizing myself.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much plainer I can make that. It means I'm not, because as soon as you negate, once we understand that the way the quantum world works is, as soon as I stop giving police authority, I'm not scared of them anymore. They no longer show up.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean I go crazy speeding at 75 miles an hour, taunting them, saying, or 80 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour, right? Or doing stupid shit. It means I live by my integrity as a divine being and know that there is no other person outside of me that can have authority over me unless I give them that authority.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it. That's such a hard thing. You have to dig so deep into. We're so emotionally kind of wired that it's, even if this makes sense, being congruent with it and doing it takes work.
Well, it does. That's why, like I'm saying, it's like now I started it a week ago, right? With a police car sitting behind me. You have no, that man or woman is divine, a divine being, another aspect of my consciousness, and has no authority over me. And at that point, it was calm. But now that I've acknowledged this, now that I've rendered unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and I'm choosing to not have any other gods, mm-hmm. Holy smokes, it's like I'm experiencing this anxiety with this. Whenever I see a police car now, it's like, oh, right? It's like maybe my subconscious mind's overreaction or hyperreaction to breaking, or the ego. No, I'm not going to say it's the subconscious, it's the ego.
Mm-hmm.
It's going, no, you got it. Yeah. And that's why I think, I'll just quietly let my driver's license, because as we discovered in the marriage license, talking about marriage licenses, that in Black's Law Dictionary, when you obtain a license, you're willingly placing yourself under police authority. So, that's as long as but it's also where's the police? Where's the true highway police? Because as I said, the state patrol works for the corporation of the state of Oklahoma. Where's the DOT police?
Mm.
Where's the police of the corporation that actually built the highways? That's who I would have the license from. Right? It's all just so freaking convoluted, and we've all accepted it. So I don't think we need to shove it in their faces. We just quietly withdraw
Okay.
our power from them and say, yeah, I'm not going to register my vehicle anymore. I'm not going to renew my driver's license. I'm not going to give you authority over me.
Okay. Seems like something that it's quite a difficult thing for everyone to do.
It's the place to start, and it's been really digging at me since last year when I came home from my vacation in New Mexico and had experienced being scammed and having all our money taken. And when the bank started refunding the money, I knew what was supposed to be where, and I was rearranging the money, and then the bank rearranged it again. It caused a whole chaotic scene, and that's when I got really pissed, because it's like, I'm a fucking adult. Let me handle my fucking money. I never gave you permission, but when you finally start seeing the system treats you as a criminal child.
Oh yeah, all the
you
time.
can't unsee it anymore, and it's like, no.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that makes me like areas or regions or countries that are where the power to exercise control in that manner is lesser. It's not absent, but it's not as, they have a lot less police, if you want.
Is there anywhere where there's a lot less police? Because man, when I was in Lima, there was one day police presence when I was in downtown Lima. I mean, there was some governmental thing happening, and the police presence was there everywhere. That was like they were expecting a riot. I was like, man.
Oh, yeah. If you find riot police, that you're gonna see a lot of police. Yeah. No, but out in the country, out in the
in the country, exactly.
Mountains.
Yes, in the mountains, in the country, away from the cities. And here's the stupid thing, is because this is why I brought up that verse of render unto Caesar things that are Caesar's, is the good Christian is going to go pull a building permit. You live in the freaking country. Why? Why are you pulling a building permit? Why? Well, because the Bible says no. So I'm saying, I'm rendering unto Caesar. I understand your, and I'm not part of it. And someone, you could say, well, Ingrid, you're getting SSDI and you're getting VA benefits, so you are part of it. Well, no, that's just the path. That's just the path that the causal realm, the God realm, the grace realm found to give me, because that was my only level of consciousness at the time. It's to give me the money to do this. No.
Wow. So we're very grateful that we can have access to this. We should be very grateful that we can learn all of this new information, and that it hopefully it'll serve for an informed reason why to act in the way that you described, and or at least realize how the system enslaves us, and how I like this thing of everything that is been prophesized for the future. It's already present. That's the way they operate. That's the way they engineer this societal engineering. They reveal things. We're gonna do this later on, and everybody's afraid of that happening later on while it's already been in place for a long
It's
time.
already been in place for how many hundreds of years?
They're just finding new ways to update the system, make
Well,
it
yeah,
more
new ways to make us criminals.
and to enforce it, right? And to and how to and find more niches where you can lay traps so that people and all this mind control psyop stuff that is pushing people to have more violent reactions, to be more opposed to each other, to be polarized, confronted, all these ideologies that push us into boxes of perception.
Yeah.
So that and there we find a lot more traps because we get enraged and we need to and we're pushed to do stuff that the system considers criminal. We are pushed to be criminal. So you've given us a lot of information on how that's happening. So are we going to continue something like this for next week?
Well, I wanted to go into exploring the 99 secrets of the Constitution that they never want us to know. But I think that for this, we're gonna shift gears.
Mm-hmm.
We need to shift gears out of this darkness.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's good to balance it out with something else, maybe.
As I told you this morning, I'm listening to a Native American woman's book on Audible and she's like, I'm a bridge. I've got one world in the spirit world and one foot in the material world. And my objection to that is once you understand that the kingdom of heaven, God is within you, you don't need to have one foot in the spiritual world and one foot in the material world. You have no right. You know that you're an integrated human being. But now we've got to understand that we have one foot in the Patrix world, the fictional Patrix world,
mm-hmm.
or Patrick's world, and one foot in the real world. Mm-hmm. And so to have one foot in the real world of love, the causal realm of love, let's next week talk about the gentle art of making love. Okay.
Hopefully we will not get censored. the algorithm doesn't.
We won't get censored because we're not giving those people the power anymore.
Yeah, we haven't been so far. As such, there was one video, but we didn't talk about sexuality. One of the shorts I made, only one, that it just has one view, which was mine, and it's like weird because every single other one has more than 200 views at least, and this one just doesn't. So almost like it picked up on something. Yeah, the algorithms are the new way of making us criminals.
Yeah. Well, so, that's why you got to decriminalize yourself and just.
Yeah.
Because our true identity is that we are, right? We're whole, perfect, and complete. But right now we've got to till we can get this our true spiritual identity, we've got to decriminalize ourselves. Mm-hmm. Because we react to everything like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I was speeding. I'm so sorry. Take me to jail. Right? I mean, I was watching the judge in Rhode Island that died a couple of years ago. He was a traffic court judge, and he was the most amazing judge. There's this TV series, and it's all on YouTube, and people come in I mean, he never made the city of Providence, Rhode Island any money because he always dropped the fines to next to nothing. And if you came in with your kid, he would call your kid to come up to the bench and give the verdict. And he was just funny. I mean, I just love watching his traffic court because he's just funny. But he died of cancer a couple of years ago now, I think. But people come in and say, "I'm guilty, charge me." That's our attitude. We don't know that we've allowed ourselves to be criminalized.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Why we've got to stand up for ourselves and say, "I am," as my statement is every day,
Mm-hmm.
"I am a loving, pleasure-oriented, decriminalized, de-armored daughter of Pachamama,
Yeah.
daughter of God, daughter of the Most High."
And
Nothing can change that.
And that shifts the frequency, and that shifts your path forward.
Absolutely, that shifts the frequency that you no longer attract cops, or you no longer attract the IRS, or you no longer attract.
So write it down, folks, and come join us next week as we're going to be talking about the pleasure side of being free. And it's all got to be, we have to take a look at everything. So that's
we do. We need to, we have to explore the dark side.
So there it is. Yeah.
So that's what we're bridging. Every day I'm doing, practicing to know that I am a fully integrated spiritual, sexual being, that sex is spiritual, that sex is sacred, that to know this, because that's what the teaching of Jesus was, to know that I'm a loving, sexual, divine being, an integrated whole with one foot in the stupid world of patrism that we've all given criminal patrism that we've all given our obedience to, and one foot in the natural, real world instead of spiritual versus material.
Yeah. Wow. So very, very, very helpful, very, very useful information. I hope that everyone that has a question or something or wishes to interact with us can allow themselves to do so. And anything else? Shall we close this conversation? Show.
Yeah, let's close it, and we'll keep it at 8:15 my time for now. That's
okay,
perfect.
Yeah. So for next week, 8:15. 8:15 Central Standard Time for the US. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next week.